They call it the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a place where ancient monasteries sit on cliffs and strangers are welcomed like family. But lately, something unusual has been happening here. More and more foreigners, from California, from Berlin, from Lagos, from all over the world, are quietly packing their bags and disappearing. They're not posting about it on Instagram. They're not making it a trend. They're just vanishing. There's a country where you can live on $800 a month, where crime is almost non-existent, where you can stay for an entire year without a visa, and where you don't need permission to just breathe. Digital nomads, entrepreneurs, families, they're all whispering the same thing. Georgia is the last free country left in Europe. So what is this place? And why is everyone keeping it a secret? Welcome to Georgia. And no, we're not talking about the American state. If you've never heard of Georgia, you're not alone. Most people mix it up with the US state. But this Georgia is different. Tucked between Turkey, Armenia, and Russia sits a nation of just 3.7 million people. A forgotten land at the edge of Europe, where empires once clashed, where wine was invented 8,000 years ago, and where Stalin was born. For centuries, it remained hidden, a secret kept by history itself. But today, something has shifted. Since 2020, tens of thousands of foreigners have moved here. And they're not leaving. This hidden Europe is quietly turning into one of the fastest growing expat hotspots on the planet. So let me show you why people are choosing this tiny country over places like Portugal, Bali, or Mexico. Because once you understand, you might just want to go too. Let's start with something that sounds too good to be true. Most countries give you 30 days, maybe 90 if you're lucky. Then it's paperwork, visa runs, immigration lawyers, stress. Georgia? They let citizens from over 90 countries stay for 1 full year without a visa. 365 days of legal stay. No applications. No questions asked. You just arrive. And when that year ends, you leave for a day, come back, and the clock resets. Georgia has a population smaller than Los Angeles. Their economy is growing, but they need fresh energy, fresh ideas, fresh capital. So they made it ridiculously easy. You can enter Georgia, stay for a year, work remotely, and pay zero taxes on foreign income if structured properly. No endless paperwork. No expensive lawyers. The air feels lighter. The rules feel simpler. Georgia doesn't just offer freedom of movement, it offers freedom of life. Because in Georgia, you can breathe. Now let's talk about money. In most European capitals, London, Paris, Berlin, $1,000 a month barely covers rent. In New York or San Francisco, you'd be homeless. But in Tbilisi or Batumi, that same $1,000 can cover your entire life. Rent a modern one-bedroom apartment in the heart of the capital? $400. A restaurant meal with wine? Maybe $10. A month of groceries? $200 if you're eating well. You can live comfortably here on $800 to $1,000 a month. And if you're earning even a modest remote income in dollars or euros, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. But here's the thing that shocks people most. It's not just cheap. It's good. The food is incredible. The wine flows like water. The apartments are spacious and beautiful. For many foreigners, that's not just affordable, it's liberating. You stop working just to survive, and you start living to actually enjoy life. In a world where rent in most cities can drain half your income, Georgia feels like a cheat code. And people who find it don't want to go back. But cheap living isn't what makes Georgia special. Not really. It's this. One moment you're standing on a snowy mountain peak that feels like the roof of the world. The next, you're walking through a desert canyon that could be Mars. Drive for 4 hours, and you'll pass through almost every climate zone in Europe. This is Sveneti, one of the highest inhabited regions in Europe. Medieval stone towers pierce the mist. Villages cling to cliffs like they're defying gravity. This is Batumi, a seaside city that feels like a mix of Miami and Istanbul. Casinos, modern architecture, and the Black Sea stretching into forever. Georgia is the size of West Virginia, but it contains everything. Mountains, beaches, deserts, wine regions, ski resorts, ancient cave cities carved into cliffs thousands of years ago. You can hike glaciers in the morning and swim in the sea by sunset. And somehow, this tiny country still feels untouched by mass tourism. No crowds crushing landmarks. No lines for hours. No influencers blocking every view. Just raw, untouched beauty. You'll see locals offering you homemade wine on the street. Not because they want your money, but because that's just who they are. For people tired of Instagram destinations and over-tourism, Georgia feels like the world before it got loud. But there's something deeper here. Something you can't capture in a photograph. In Georgia, hospitality isn't a gesture, it's a law of life. There's a word here, supra. It means a feast that brings everyone together. Family, friends, even strangers. Once you sit at a Georgian table, you're no longer a guest. You're part of the story. Your family. Georgians have a tradition called stumari. The guest is a gift from God. They treat visitors with sacred reverence. That warmth, that genuine, unfiltered warmth, is what makes so many foreigners stay. You don't just find a new country. You find a second home. Walking through Old Tbilisi feels like stepping into a living museum. Wooden balconies hang over cobblestone streets. Sulfur baths steam from underground. Churches and mosques stand side by side. This is a culture that survived invasions, empires, and centuries of turmoil. And somehow, it kept its soul intact. That's the Georgia most travelers never see. But once you feel it, you understand why people don't leave. Now let me tell you something that genuinely shocked me. Georgia is one of the safest countries in the world. Not just in the region. In the world. You can walk through Tbilisi at 3 a.m. and feel completely safe. Women travel solo here without fear. Petty crime is almost non-existent. According to the Global Peace Index, Georgia ranks higher in safety than the United States, France, Italy, and even parts of the UK. Think about that. A country most people have never heard of is safer than some of the world's most developed nations. But partly culture. That same hospitality that makes Georgians welcome strangers also makes them protective of their communities. In the early 2000s, Georgia underwent massive anti-corruption reforms. Police were completely rebuilt from scratch. Street crime plummeted. The country simply works. In Georgia, you're not constantly looking over your shoulder. You're not clutching your bag on the metro. You're not calculating risk every time you go outside. You're just living. And in 2025, that kind of safety feels like a luxury most places can't offer anymore. Since 2020, something else has been happening in Georgia. A quiet wave of remote workers has been flowing into Tbilisi and Batumi, and they're building something new. Fast, reliable internet. A time zone that perfectly fits both European and Asian work schedules. Co-working spaces popping up everywhere. No strict taxes on foreign income. Easy visa policy. Low cost of living. Tbilisi is now full of cafes that feel like Silicon Valley, only with better food, cheaper rent, and mountain views out the window. The expat community here is tight. Not cliquey, just real. People help each other, share tips, build friendships. Because everyone here chose to be here. And that shared choice creates a bond. Georgia is becoming a hub for startups, freelancers, and entrepreneurs who realized they don't need expensive cities to build something meaningful. They just needed freedom. And they found it here. But here's the part no one talks about openly. A lot of people moving to Georgia aren't just chasing cheap rent or pretty mountains. They're chasing freedom. Since 2020, the world changed. Borders closed. Governments tightened control. And a lot of people started asking, where can I just live? Georgia became an answer. It stayed open when much of the world shut down. And people noticed. This little country in the Caucasus became a refuge. Not from war. Not from poverty. But from systems that felt too tight. From bureaucracy. From restrictions. In Georgia, you don't need permission to live your life. You can work, travel, explore. And the people who came here? They didn't just stay for a season. They stayed for years. Because in Georgia, you can breathe. And after years of feeling suffocated, that breath feels sacred. Of course, no place is perfect. And Georgia isn't paradise. The country still struggles with low local wages. Political tension lingers with Russia. Infrastructure outside major cities can be unpredictable. Some expats leave after a few months. The bureaucracy can be slow. Learning Georgian is nearly impossible. And winters can be cold and gray. But for those who stay, that's exactly the charm. Georgia's imperfection makes it human. It's not polished. It's not trying to be Switzerland. It's real. And that realness is what people are searching for. But here's the twist. It won't stay hidden much longer. More people are finding out every day. Travel bloggers are catching on. Real estate investors are moving in. Rent in Tbilisi has already started climbing. 5 years ago, an apartment in the city center was $300. Now it's $500, $600, sometimes more. The secret is leaking. Because the Georgia that exists right now, affordable, uncrowded, raw, free, might not be the Georgia of 2030. It's the curse of every hidden gem. The moment people discover it, it begins to change. Bali, Lisbon, Chiang Mai, they all went through this. So the people who moved here early, they got in before the wave. Before prices doubled. Before the tourists arrived. They found the Georgia that still feels like a secret. And maybe that's the real reason they don't talk about it. But the truth is, the secret is already out. So why are so many foreigners secretly moving to Georgia? Maybe it's all of them woven together. The cost, the safety, the freedom, the beauty, the warmth of people who still treat strangers like gifts. The space to breathe in a world that's running out of air. Maybe people are moving here because Georgia still has something the rest of the world is losing. So, Georgia is ancient, imperfect, stubborn, beautiful, and in a world of filters, facades, and fake smiles, real feels revolutionary. Georgia isn't for everyone. Winters can be harsh. The language is impossible. The politics are complicated. But for the people who stay, those imperfections become part of the story. Their story. Because Georgia doesn't give you a perfect life. It gives you a real one. And maybe that's what we've all been searching for. So if one day you decide to disappear from the noise, if you want to step off the treadmill, if you're searching for a place where freedom still feels real, where strangers still open their doors, and where you can live without asking permission, don't be surprised if you find yourself here. In a small country between Europe and Asia, where wine flows from clay pots buried underground, where mountains touch the clouds, where the people still believe that a guest is a gift from God. This is Georgia. And now, you know the secret. The question is, will you keep it?